It's another edition of the Vancouver Hockey Show, the VHS. Andrew Wadden alongside producer Aaron. And listen, if things were gloomy around Vancouver over the last little while, Aaron, it probably had something to do with the way the Vancouver Canucks were playing. Maybe the sky was falling for some Canuck fans, even though they had quite a comfortable cushion and were able to endure a 4-game losing streak. But that's all over after a big win on Saturday night. So many things to like about it.
Speaking of VHS, a blockbuster win, I'd say. Hey,
there you go. Please be kind, rewind. Yeah, massive win on Saturday night over the Boston Bruins. So many good things to like about that game. So many moments to like about that game, including the return of the Green Men. And we have a
return of the men.
We have a very special guest that's going to join us a little bit later on. A little tease there for you. But before we get to that big win against the Bruins, let's rewind the tape a little bit as we do and go all the way back.
Oh God, do Monday. We have to?
All the way back to a week ago today when the Vancouver Canucks lost by a field goal in Minnesota to the Wild, not to the Vikings. It wasn't Lions-Vikings in this game. No. This was a hockey game, folks. A 10-7 loss to the Minnesota Wild. 7 goals. The Wild scored a touchdown in the third period. 4 consecutive power play goals, multiple 5-on-3s that the Canucks had to try to fight off and unsuccessfully did that.
Found a glitch in the program for sure in that third period, man.
My God. There are a couple of positives in the game. JT Miller had himself a hat trick, and we're going to get to JT Miller a little bit later on.
Once those goals started, that hat trick was long forgotten.
Long forgotten in that game. The guy had a 4-point night. A 4-point night, like you're celebrating that, not a
hat trick in the second period, and oh, cool, great night, JT, and then whoa, left turn.
Yeah, and for all the woes of the power play, the PK, woof, as they say, they're going to want to burn the tape for that one. So let's just move past that game because honestly, those happen usually once a season. They're hard to sort of put your finger on. If you're a Minnesota Wild fan, you're absolutely loving that because they are in a dogfight right now. The Canucks can take a loss like that. They can.
Can I say, I wish I was in Minnesota in that arena just to feel that energy, man, because man, that place was rocking. That became an outdoor stadium instantly, and the roof got blown off in the third period.
And an afternoon affair in that game as well. Of course, morning for us, but an afternoon affair for the folks out in Minnesota. All right, so we move past that one and we shuffle our way to Colorado, which never an easy building to win in. I loved the effort from the Canucks, 5-on-5 there. And actually to wheel it back to the Minnesota game just for a second as well, like 5-on-5, they were the better team in that game. They were. Look at the analytics. They all scream towards the Canucks, but I mean, when you take stupid penalties and then you can't kill them off, well, that's what happens. And then again, so let's now move to Colorado where again, they won the 5-on-5 battle. Like I liked what you saw from the Canucks. Maybe not necessarily won, though. I shouldn't say necessarily won the 5-on-5. They held their own in that game. Now, this was not a game won on special teams by the Avs. All their goals were even strength, and 2 of them came from Port Moody's Ryan Johansson, who had himself a game. The Canucks really just couldn't capitalize on their chances. I remember there was that one mad scramble. It was kind of reminiscent of, wow, what game was that? A couple of games ago where people were losing their mind over that scramble that just kept going. That's because the puck was underneath Ian Cole.
That was the Jets game, right?
Yeah, there we go. The Jets game. Yes. Yeah. So there was a moment that was sort of similar against the Avs where there was a mad scramble and Georgiev was in the end able to make a save. But yeah, like I said, the Canucks just weren't able to capitalize on their chances there. The big boys were really sort of negated in that game. Like they kept the McKinnon line off the score sheet until the empty netter. By the way, McKinnon has not missed a game with a point at home yet this year, which is unbelievable. The record's 40, by the way. I believe he's at 28 or 29 right now. But the record's 40, and it's Gretzky. He did it in every game in LA. Yeah. Every game in his first season in LA at home, Wayne Gretzky got a point or more. But that's a pretty cool stat that McKinnon is tracking towards. Anyway, a good game. That was a good playoff type game. I think the Canucks left Colorado, maybe not feeling great because it was another L, but they can hold their head high that they held their own against a team that a lot of people consider to be a Stanley Cup favorite. Then they go into Seattle, and it's the end of a road trip, but it's sort of probably not because I believe they got to sleep in their own bed. I don't know if they went from Colorado to Seattle I'm not a reporter that follows this team on the road, so I don't know
like
exactly
if I'm the Canucks, it would make sense just to come home. You got a day. Like
that's
just,
what I thought they,
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is that Tocchet did make a reference post-game because he was pissed post-game. It was an awful effort. They were sleeping in Seattle because they were asleep in that game. One of the worst efforts of the year. Go and look up the analytics. They're awful. And they're burned by a former Canuck as well in Jared McCann, 4-point night. And then loads of emotion from Tocchet post-game. Said a lot of no-shows. Mentioned that a couple times. Got to get guys going. And he was right about that. I believe he referenced as well, something about, we got to make sure we have better habits off the ice as well. Maybe that's what he was talking about in between those games, perhaps. But regardless, that was another one of those games and that's not a burn the tape type game. Like that's not the Minnesota, meltdown. Like this is one of those games where you just flat out did not show up. And that is just unacceptable for Rick Tocchet. Like, there's a lot of things that Rick Tocchet will endure. He's not going to, if you effort is not one of them. You cannot suffer effort. You have to give it for Rick Tocchet. So that game there, unacceptable. So now we head into Boston or head back into Vancouver against Boston, that is. And what happens? They get down early, but then they poured it on in the third.
But the first period was all goaltending.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Swayman was really good in this game. But then the third period.
But also Demko making big stops too. You're like,
day that ends in Y, right? Third period comes around though, and the Canucks just, at first I'm like, is this sort of score effects in terms of, they're down, they're pushing, and Boston's just sort of holding on. And it was, but Boston wasn't able to hold on. And the Canucks are able to tie it up there in the last 2 minutes, 70 seconds. Yeah. With a Hronek goal. Beautiful goal from Hronek. Goalie pulled. Besser gets a multi-goal game. He's got 3 goals in his last 4.
But also beautiful screen by Besser too, just perfectly timed.
The power play too really needed that. Like they were 1 for 28 going into the game against the Bruins on Saturday, and they end up going 1 for 2 in that game. So, they're 2 for 30 over the last 10 games, but that second goal there, the one that won it in overtime, second power play goal that is in their last 30 chances, that was big for them. And I like the fact that, Tocchet mixed up the lines. He went heavy down the middle, Lindholm centering that third line, and puts Blueger down on the fourth. Amon being a healthy scratch, I'm okay with. I mentioned that before. I believe it was on last week's pod. I have not loved Amon's game, and I don't think that Amon deserved, a spot every night in the lineup. He was slipping through his fingers, and rightfully so now. So like what you see from those lines, and that's, how many teams can go, Miller, Pettersson, Lindholm down the middle, and Blueger even, right? Blueger's a fantastic fourth line center. So
he has great chances, man, in that game. But
yeah, I liked what I saw from them too. And there was a lot to like about, the other lines, like the what do you call it again? The Schmergiberg? The Schmergiberg line. Like that, if you look at the analytics of those guys together, like they were doing some good things, but Tocchet he needed a mix. He needed something. He needed a spark.
Especially after Seattle, man. Like, let's just shake this up.
And what did they ever with a massive win over the Bruins? Okay, let's get into some of the bigger stories around the Canucks this week. And yeah, that power play is still struggling. And I talked about it there. They're now 2 for 30 over the last 10 games. So power play is definitely something that they got to get going. And it probably has a lot to do with this guy as well. And the Elias Pettersson criticism that, a lot of people have been talking about over the last week or so. And, I was one of the people that brought it up as well last week on the pod, just pointing out the sort of lack of production against the big boys of the West. When you take away Edmonton out of that equation, like it's not good. It's not. He's got 1 goal when it comes to facing off against Winnipeg, Dallas, or Colorado. You can put Vegas into the mix there as well. But he has had some success against Edmonton. Regardless, this is when you actually break it all the way down and you look at Pettersson against, the top teams in the NHL, like the top 10 teams for points percentage. Like he's doing well. Like he's well over a point a game. So I think we need to sort of pump the brakes just a little bit when it comes to Petey. But also too, we have sort of a what have you done for me lately sort of mentality when it comes to, Canuck fans. Take a look at his January. Like it was absolutely ridiculous. When you hit heights like that, like to sort of follow them up month to month, it can be tough. And like, as I pull it up here, his month of January, he had 21 points, 14 goals. Now he's 10 points in the month of February now, and he's still got a few more games to go.
Short month.
But again, like, guys, 21 points in a month, that's a lot. So I think the ebbs and flows with Petey are something that people are going to have to sort of, mind. But at the same time, too, like, guys, like, he played out of his freaking head in January. So maybe give him a bit of a pass. And I should say that to myself as well, because I was the one that did point out his lack of production against those better teams in the West. The reason why I did that, though, is because those are the teams that you're going to have to face come playoff time. And we did a TikTok video talking about that, and had somebody come back and say, well, it's a small sample size. And I believe it was 6 games is what I pointed out between Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado, and Vegas. But like, that's a series in the playoffs, right? So you want to talk sample size. Well, if he's got 1 goal in 6 games, that's probably not going to do well for the Canucks when it comes into the playoffs, right? So just something to keep an eye on. But again, I'm not going to sit here and throw Elias Pettersson under the bus. I think Elias Pettersson has been very good for the Canucks this year. And I think we're kind of getting a little bit spoiled. We're getting a little nitpicky almost. But I think Petey's going to be fine. JT Miller, however, I don't know, man. I just feel like he's super unappreciated when it comes to this city at times. And you look at the losing streak, Aaron. He had 6 points, 5 goals. He was a +3.
He was the opening goal scorer in a lot of those, wasn't he?
So, and if you just want to draw the comparison as well, like Petey had a goal over that span, and it was a -5. So JT had that massive game against the Bruins, 3 assists. Man, he was beast mode in the third period. I don't know what Tocchet said to them or what. I know he said that he didn't have to say a whole lot. He felt like the bench really took care of itself in that game. It was do it for the Gipper or whatever speech between periods going into the third period, because the Canucks really flipped the switch, and it was really led by JT Miller. He's 5th in the NHL in scoring now with 79 points. He's on pace for 108 points this year. Like 108 points. Absolutely ridiculous season from JT Miller. And I told you my argument about him trending towards the rafters. If you guys haven't heard it, look it up on one of our old podcasts or head over to TikTok. I explain it there. But the appreciation for JT Miller, it feels like he just kind of flies under the radar, but yet he's the heart and soul of this team. Like, I know Quinn Hughes wears the captaincy, and I don't, argue that Quinn Hughes is a great leader, but he's a quiet leader. JT Miller wears his heart on his sleeve, and he is 100% the heart and soul of this team, doing great things for them this year. A really good feel-good story was the Arshdeep Bains NHL debut. Of course, he's a Surrey native, grew up loving the Canucks, wasn't drafted in the dub, wasn't drafted in the NHL, has been able to find success, at least, leading up to the NHL at every level. Now he's making a big step now, and we'll see exactly how things go for him, but like what I've seen so far.
Yeah, and his dad got to go on the trip, which is awesome, cool. Man.
That's really cool, actually. Now, I said that he's taken some big steps. Like, he took a big step in the AHL this year. He's nearly a point-a-game guy, 39 points in 42 games. He got the AHL All-Star Game MVP, which is a great story. Loved his game in Colorado. I thought he set up a couple of good chances. He gets elevated in Seattle into the Miller line, which honestly wasn't a great showing for everyone. That's just, again, one of those games. But on a line with Lindholm and Garland against the Bruins. So that's something to maybe keep an eye on right now, especially with Dakota Joshua being out of the lineup. He seems like he's a Tocchet type player.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not huge. Like, he I don't know. I thought he was bigger on the ice. He's not massive. Got decent speed. He forechecks, he backchecks. You got to love all that. And he's got good hands. But he seems like he's a smart
He
player.
Almost had a beautiful goal in Colorado for his first NHL goal. And it was, man.
I think Tocchet likes those moldable type players, like those guys that just want to absorb and be taught, right? And I mean,
the guys that want to be there, man.
Well, I mean, look at him. Everything he's had to endure to get there.
Yep.
Right? I mean, you don't get drafted into the WHL. You don't get drafted into the NHL, but you just keep going. And now here you are playing for your hometown team. So a really cool story. We'll have to keep an eye on it as well. See if he can continue to stay in this lineup. But right now with Dakota Joshua out, feels like the right guy to be in the lineup for Tocchet. Okay, Aaron, I said we had a special guest. A very special guest. They were the guest of honor at Rogers Arena. Sully from the Green Men joining us from the airport as he gets out of town. A quick in and out for the Green Men.
It's an honor, buddy. How we doing?
Yeah, doing very well. So tell me about this because, I mean, you and I are friends. You usually tell me stuff. You didn't tell me about this. Did the Canucks make you keep this one under wraps?
It was kind of a joint decision. I got out here and there's family members that had no idea. Like, I didn't tell anybody, and I'm primarily because I'm only in town for like 30 hours or something here, so I don't really have time to go around and grab beers, unfortunately, everybody. But no, we kept it like we've been talking about this probably since like October, and just kind of mapped it out, picked a game, and then it was like the perfect storm. It just worked beautifully.
So there were some people that were questioning whether it was you guys, I should say, because it's you and Force, of course. And
yeah,
there were a couple of guys that showed up at Rogers Arena a few weeks ago, and I remember you saying like on your socials, "Hey, good to see those guys, not us though." So was that the sort of mouse-bouche, if you will, to the Green Men being the main course?
Oh, French. Classic.
Yeah.
It was an Office reference. Yeah, you missed it. That's okay. No, it was that had nothing to do with anything. It was just like kind of weird timing. It was just two guys up in the suite that were, I think they were just throwing back a few and just wanted to make some people laugh. And it was great. Like, it was awesome to see. And it was actually kind of nice because we got kind of a sneak preview of the crowd reaction and people were digging it. And they just kept, wanting us back because we would, if you're sitting in the suites, you can't really do any stunts and stuff like that. So it was great, actually. Usually, when there's like imposters doing, X, Y, or Z, if they're doing like endorsements or something, we kind of have trouble with that. But for these guys, they were just having a good time. So we were pretty stoked on it.
Did the new suits, did Fanatics have a hand in those? Because they're a little revealing, if you will.
I heard Ron McLean talking about that too. I think just over time we've just put on a couple LBs. It's been 9 long years, man.
You haven't been doing as many handstands by the penalty box.
Yeah,
there,
exactly.
Dude, that was honestly the first time I've attempted a handstand in 9 years. And the first one, actually, we got out there like before the game started. We were kind of in the arena while they were still doing like in-game testing. And I'm like, all right, you know what? I'll give this a shot. And it was a rough one. So thankfully, during the game, I was able to kind of stick the landing on it. But yeah, the first try was I was starting to like black out, like, oh, this is bad news.
So okay, you talked about this in October with the Canucks. So I mean, they couldn't have foresaw really, what this team is, what this moment was going to be. I mean, or could they have? Like, it just seems interesting that they sort of came this season, especially back then, because they didn't have the success just yet, but they had the foresight to bring you guys back.
Well, there's obviously the team on the ice, and then there's the team off the ice, like the in-game side. And I mean, as you guys have noticed, I've been out of town for a number of years here. As you've noticed, like, the in-game presentation is just far and away better than it was. Like, it's like a concert in there. That's how they treat it. And so, I think they saw, it's like every single game, we always get people tweeting at us and stuff to come back. And so they saw that and they thought, this could be a good opportunity. And then the fact that the team's killing it, it just, like I say, it was the perfect storm. Like, everything just came together. Albeit I was getting a little worried in the second period. It was there were no penalties or down 2-0, but no, everything just came together perfectly. And I think whether the Canucks were on a tear this year or not, it would have been great. Every time we go there, people just have fun, and that's always the goal of it.
JVR, the first guy to walk into the penalty box for the Boston Bruins, did he give you a reaction at all? Did he make eye contact?
He was laughing, man. It was and it was great because we've had him in the box before when he was with the Leafs way back in the day. we had JVR on the box, and clearly, I think you remember that we didn't get a chance to chat with him too much, unfortunately, because like we came down right when he went into the box. We were just getting everything set up, and he was gone before we knew it. But no, he was loving it, man. And if you watch the tape, like he's got a good grin on him and stuff, and it was pretty cool. So it was pretty neat. It was a good start. I mean, we came down at the first TV timeout, and that's when the first penalty was. Like we were just praying there wasn't like a bench clearing brawl in the first 2 minutes because we would have missed it. So no, it was good, man. It worked out perfect.
And the waffles, that's a ode to the Maple Leafs there as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. What's really funny about that is that you can kind of tell who's a newer Canuck fan and who was a fan back in the day.
Yes.
Or even like who was alive back in the day. Because like there's so many comments are like, what's the deal with these waffles? You know, like that's a kid. And then like a guy will come in and be like, oh, this goes back to this date and time. So it's pretty funny, man.
The waffles story itself, like when it did happen in Toronto, like nobody could even explain it. The Leafs were just doing Leaf things back then and just being awful like they normally were. But like some random fan just threw, and for those that don't know, just came up and just threw waffles on the ice. Nobody knew why. So a great pull there. I also saw the sign as well, bigger Homer with the Homer and then Jack Edwards on it. I thought that one was really good. Really well done. So, okay, thanks, you guys show up for the Bruins. And of course, because of the history, 2011, all that stuff. And any plans for you guys to return? Like obviously be fantastic, but won't see Boston again until perhaps the Stanley Cup Finals. So, you know, any plans to bring, are you even allowed to say anything? Like,
well, no, I mean, yeah, honestly, and like I said, we're buddies. If I knew something, I'd tell you. I can say like, and this is the most cliche thing, but it's like it's a never say never. Like if this is the way that it ends, like that was just so pure and beautiful, and I'm so happy with that. But like people still clearly were digging it in there. Like there was a reaction. That place came unglued, and to be a part of that, we'd love to do it again. My phone's always on if they want to have us back out because we had a hell of a time. But if this is the last, if that was the last hurrah, I mean, that feels good. That was a good way to go out if that's the last one.
I have a final question here.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever get a chance to break bread with Glenn Healy, and did he get his third suit?
So Healy backtracked on us heavy. You remember he was chirping, obviously, during the first round in 2011. And then we're in Nashville. We went down there for, what was it, games 3 and 4, I think it was. And we go to this bar, Tootsie's. And by the way, if you ever go to Nashville, Tootsie's is unbelievable.
World famous.
And so, yeah. So we're in Tootsie's. We're just throwing back some beers. Jim Houston comes up. We're like, oh, hey, like, amazing. Jim Houston's there. And then he's like, oh my gosh. Like we gets talking, and within the circle, he like finds out we're green men and stuff. And so he said, oh, you guys just hang on a second. I'll be right back. He runs downstairs, comes back up with Glenn Healy. And Healy clearly had no idea. And he's like, oh, hey, I love you guys. I was just joking. So he just backtracked immediately after chirping us so heavy on a hockey night. But it was great. He was a good dude. I got no hard feelings there. It was good stuff. So, but no, it was fun, man. I mean, back in 2011, like, man, the city was just off the charts. But I feel like if the Canucks can put anything even similar to that together again, that kind of run again, it's going to be that on steroids, because the games are so much more fun now than they were. Like it was just such a wonderful experience, and to get that every single game, every single night, like you guys are lucky up here.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal to see this team playing the way they are, and to have it come out of sort of nowhere as well was really I think one of the more exciting things about this team this year, because as the sort of games sort of tick off and you're going, all right, like I remember maybe around mid-December or so, Aaron, we're sitting there going like, we can't like stop defending this anymore. Like they're just good. We just got to say it now. They're just good. And that's the way it's going to be. Right? We'll see what happens with this playoff. I hope they bring you guys back for the playoffs. I really do. If they can make any sort of run, it'd be fantastic to get you guys back. But what a night. And you're absolutely right. If this is the send-off, I'm glad you guys got to properly do it, because that was phenomenal. There were people that were asking me, is that Sully? I'm like, when I knew it was you, I know how big of a fan of Always Sunny in Philadelphia you are. And Dennis Reynolds, the moves. I was like, that's Sully. He's got them. They're like the moves like Jagger, really. But I knew right away that was you at that point.
It was funny. Like, so I did an interview with CTV this morning. And so I'm out kind of around the concourse and around that area there. And a guy just walks up, and he's in a Canucks jersey. And usually when people come up, they'll say like, "Oh, the handstand or waffles or something." Like they'll talk about their favorite thing, Carrie Underwood cutout, something like that. This guy's like, the guy came up, he's like, "Oh, you're dark green. I love your dancing." All right.
Well, I saw that they got forced a jersey, which probably was a good thing because the old Twig and Berries were pretty prominent there for him. So
I fell for Forrest too, because like you get down there, you get pretty sweaty in those suits. You're moving a lot, and he just came back from like a week or 2 weeks, I think, in Mexico, just like the other day, and he's got to throw the spandex on.
Oh, buddy. But yeah,
but it was man, it was a party in there. It was a good time, and honestly, like I think if you see it anywhere else in that stadium, it just, like the guys in the suite now, like, you create a little buzz, but it's not the same. No. Like it's those seats, it's the penalty, it's the camera, like it's just a whole perfect storm of things that has to happen. And last night, magically, even though I was kind of doubting it in that second period, everything went right. Everything just clicked. So it was perfect.
Yeah. You brought me down into those seats before. And for those that don't know, those were your dad's seasons at one point, or I guess your dad's company seasons at one point. But you brought me down to those seats one time, and to watch a game there it's amazing. Like, obviously, you want to be a few levels up because then you get that full, but to be so close and just to be right there with the players, it's so exciting. And the fact that the players, like, they can try to ignore you guys, but really, inside they're just howling, right? So I think, hey, listen, you guys had a hand. I know JT Miller had 3 assists last night, but I think you guys had a couple yourselves, especially on that game-winning goal there. So a great night, Sully. Awesome to have you back. Hope we see you again. I know I'll see you again this summer, but hopefully we'll see you again at Rogers Arena. And thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I love you, buddy, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, amazing stuff there from Sully. And I don't know if you guys noticed at all, but yeah, like, we're really good friends. Like, I know Sully very well. We used to work together in radio back in the day. I also know Adam very well, who's Force. Again, worked with him in radio back in the day, and he was working at Sportsnet 650 there for a little while. I believe he's doing communications now, but Sully's out in Saskatchewan being a radio star out there. I mean, I know you and I were talking about it because you were wondering, like, is that the real guys?
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
I mean, it's hard to tell, right?
You're right.
Like,
no, you're right. But it just felt like because of where they were seated. And then, like the dance moves, as soon as I saw it's if you're a fan of Always Sunny in Philadelphia, you know what I'm talking about with the dance moves with Dennis Reynolds. And Sully always loved that show. And again, as soon as I saw that, I was like, and then when I saw the video closer, I realized his dad was in the background, and that's his dad's seats. So I was like, or they used to be, at least back in the day. I don't know if he still got them, but anyway, great story there. Awesome of the Canucks. I have crapped on them in game ops many times just because of the unoriginal stuff that they do. Sully is right though. Like it is more like a concert nowadays. Like Between Whistles they do a good job of entertaining people. I just wish they would do a little more original stuff, but then they do something like this, which is 100% their own.
And it was nice. Everybody was into it, right? Oh, everybody was into it. So come on, Canucks, you got to bring them back for the playoffs. You got to
bring them back. You have to. Like, on it. The thing is, though, Aaron, I've seen the price of those tickets because I have sat in those tickets before. I had the physical ticket in my hand. Mm-hmm. The sticker price of those tickets, but they're not cheap. No.
But it's worth so much more having those guys in the seats 100%. Than the actual cost of those seats, man.
Yeah. And you could do a whole campaign around it as well if you really wanted to. I don't know. Maybe somebody from the Canucks front office might want to have a chat with us. But yeah, no, great stuff. And again, like I said, I have been, on them about stuff that they've done in the past that just wasn't their own. This one is 100% their own, although Sully and Force kind of stole the idea from Always Sunny in Philadelphia as well. It's a great show. All right. We'll be back again next week. We'll do our usual recap of the week and a big one ahead, though. Again, all these games ahead are big now for the Canucks. 22 games left in the regular season.
And mostly at home.
Exactly. They have a .737 points percentage at home. So they should feel really good about 14 of 22 at home. And we'll be here, of course, each and every week to wrap it up.
Big breaking news, though, Andrew.
Oh,
no Saturday game this week.
Oh, I know. That's right. Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday.
Afternoon down in California.
But you know what will be 6 a.m. Monday mornings. You'll be able to listen to us again, or perhaps whenever you feel like listening to it, because it's a damn podcast. All right. All right. For Ryan Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, thanks for joining us. Producer Aaron, I'm Andrew Wadden. Thanks for listening, everyone.